She looked right through me. Not past me. Not around me. Through me. Like I wasn't even a person standing there with 2 feet on the damn floor. I was holding 2 paper plates. One with those weird mushroom tartlets she likes, and the other with 3 sad chicken skewers. Her favorite kind, the spicy ones. The skewers got cold. My fingers got greasy. She never came back for them. I had been standing by that stupid fire pit for almost 40 minutes, making small talk with a man who told me about the evolution of cork. Cork, as in wine bottle corks. I nodded politely, smiled at all the right parts, and kept glancing over toward her. She was glowing. Not in a happy, life is good way. In a spotlight on the queen kind of way. She was the center of the room without trying to be. Hair curled. Dress that didn't even seem hers. Laugh louder than I remembered it. And there he was. Anton. Laughing with her like they shared some secret joke from years ago. Like they had a life outside the one I knew about. That's when it happened. I tried to walk over. Nothing dramatic, just walk. Like a normal person. But the second our eyes met, hers locked on mine like I was a stranger. There wasn't even a flicker of recognition. No smile. No hey babe. Nothing. And then she turned away. I stood there, holding 2 cold plates, the fire reflecting off the grease on my fingers. I'm not writing this for sympathy. God knows I've run out of that for myself. I'm writing this because I think something happened that night. Something I wasn't supposed to notice. And I need to tell it all, from the first uneasy glance to the last message she sent before everything imploded. What happened after I left that party? What I found on her phone the next morning? What she confessed after saying, "Please just let me explain," while crying on the kitchen floor. It's burned into my brain like a bad dream I can't wake up from. I didn't respond to her text that night. I didn't have it in me. I left the party without saying a word to anyone. Drove around aimlessly until I ended up in the parking lot of a 24-hour gas station, sitting under buzzing fluorescent lights like some washed-up detective in a cheap thriller. I just stared at the steering wheel, replaying everything. The way she didn't smile. The way she leaned into him when she laughed. The way she made me feel like a guest at someone else's life. When I got home around midnight, she wasn't there yet. Her car was still at the vineyard. No missed calls. Just the same message glowing on my lock screen. Hey. Where'd you go? Everything okay? At 2:03 a.m., the front door creaked. I didn't pretend to be asleep. She didn't pretend to care that I wasn't. Her heels clicked down the hallway like they owned the house, and then silence. She didn't come into the bedroom. She didn't even peek in. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was desperation. But when I heard the shower start in the guest bathroom, her "I don't want to wake you" excuse, I slipped out of bed, walked into the kitchen, and found her phone on the counter next to her empty wine glass. Unlocked. Wide open. No password. Or maybe she had removed it. I don't know. What I do know is that I wish I had never looked. I wish I had walked back to bed and just let the world keep lying to me. Because in her messages, right at the top, was a thread named Anton. Do not open at work skull. I opened it. The first thing I saw was a picture of her legs, crossed on his office couch, toes pointed, like she was showing off. The message beneath it said, "Think you can focus today, or nah?" I scrolled. My thumb trembled. There were memes. Flirty banter. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Voice notes that made my stomach twist just reading the transcriptions. And then the worst one, dated 2 days before the party. Anton. Still bringing the husband Friday? Grinning face with sweat. Her, unfortunately. Gotta keep up appearances. Just don't make me laugh too hard, or he'll start catching on face blowing a kiss. That was it. That was the moment something inside me just snapped. I wasn't mad, not in the traditional way. I felt erased. I stood there in my own kitchen, holding her phone like it was radioactive, and for the first time in years, I realized I had no idea who I had married. None. When she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel like it was just another Tuesday, I was sitting at the table with her phone turned off in front of me. She froze. Her eyes didn't widen. No gasp. No panic. She just looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone like she was calculating whether to admit or deny. And then she said it. I can explain. Not "I'm sorry." Not "Please don't leave." Not even "It's not what it looks like." Just that. And maybe that's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one bad decision. This was planned, managed, hidden, and I'd been too pathetic, too trusting, too in love to see it. But what really destroyed me, what completely redefined the last 6 years of my life, was what I found the next morning. It wasn't just Anton. There was another thread, one she thought she had deleted. I almost didn't open it. After what I'd already seen, I told myself that was enough. I didn't want to dig deeper. I didn't want more details burned into my memory. But curiosity is a strange thing. When you've been lied to long enough, your brain starts craving answers more than peace. The thread was buried under recently deleted. I only noticed it because I accidentally tapped the wrong button trying to close out of her messaging app. It didn't have a name, just a number. No contact photo. No saved identity. The last message was sent exactly 8 minutes before she got into the shower. Unknown. Did he say anything? You good? She hadn't replied. There were only 5 messages in the entire thread. No photos. No emojis. Just words. Cold. Direct. But one in particular made my entire body seize up. Unknown. Still want me to pick you up after or nah? That was dated the night of the party. Pick her up after? After what? After leaving with me? After pretending to be the loyal wife for one more public event? I didn't recognize the number, but something about the way they typed didn't feel like Anton. Anton had personality. Whoever this was sounded efficient. Like this wasn't romantic. Like this was business. Quiet business. I copied the number and ran it through an old client database on my work laptop. IT has its perks. I wasn't expecting anything to come up, but it did. I don't know how to say this without sounding dramatic, but the number was tied to a business I never knew she had any connection to. It was registered under a catering company in a town 40 miles away, one I'd never even heard her mention. Small time, barely a website, but the owner's name hit me like a punch to the gut. Dominic R. Halbert. She had mentioned the name once. Months ago, in passing, said he helped organize a wine and cheese pop-up. I remember it because I had made a dumb joke, something about halberd sounding like a medieval weapon. She'd just smiled and said, he's harmless. So why was he texting her at 1 a.m., asking if he should pick her up? And more importantly, why was she trying to delete that conversation before I woke up? I didn't tell her I saw the thread. Not right away. That morning, I made coffee like I always do. Sat across from her at the table, the same table where just hours before I'd been holding her unlocked phone like a live grenade. She acted normal. A little tired, maybe. Hungover. She barely looked at me. Just scrolled through her phone like it was any other Saturday. I couldn't stop looking at her hands. She has these small, neat hands. Always cold. Always moving. Tapping. Fidgeting. Lying. I told her I was heading out to the hardware store to grab a part for the sink. She nodded, distracted. Said, grab paper towels too, if they have any. Like we were still doing this routine, this theater. But I wasn't going to the hardware store. I was going to the address tied to that catering business. It wasn't a big place. Not even a storefront. Just a gray, windowless building behind an auto shop in a sleepy industrial strip. There wasn't a sign. No logo. Just a mailbox with peeling letters that read DRH Services. I sat in my car across the street for 10 minutes before I got out. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I thought I'd see her walk out. Or that someone would confront me, ask what I was doing there. Nothing happened. The front door was locked. There was a keypad, but no buzzer. I walked around back and found a loading dock with a rusted metal ramp and an old vending machine that looked like it hadn't worked since 2003. Then I saw it. Taped to the inside of the small window on the dock door was a printed list. A spreadsheet. I couldn't read most of it through the glass, but I saw her name, Madeline Garner. And next to it, a time, Friday, 11:30 p.m. That was the night of the party. Exactly the time she got home. Or, when I thought she got home. The thing is, I never checked. I never watched her walk in. I just heard the door and assumed. So now the question I can't stop asking myself is, did she even come home that night? Because if that schedule was accurate, and if that place wasn't just a catering business, then she might have been somewhere else entirely. And I think Dominic knows exactly where. I drove straight to a strip mall 20 minutes outside of town and bought a prepaid phone in cash. I didn't want to use mine. I didn't want to risk anything being traced back if I was wrong about all this. If I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew I wasn't wrong. You don't accidentally end up on a schedule taped to a warehouse window next to a guy who isn't your husband. I sat in my truck with the burner in one hand and the number in the other. I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. I kept imagining how his voice would sound. Young, confident, guilty. I had no plan. I wasn't even sure what I was going to say. When he answered, I nearly dropped the phone. Hello. Just one word. Calm, curious. Not rushed. Not suspicious. I cleared my throat and said, "Hey, is this Dominic?" Pause. "Who's asking?" I didn't give a name. I just said I was calling about a freelance opportunity. "I got your number from someone at Madeline's winery." I lied. "They said you cater private events, right?" Another pause. Longer this time. Then he said, "Who gave you my number?" I made up a name on the spot. Said I'd heard he handled discreet arrangements. That word changed something in his tone. Suddenly, he relaxed. "Yeah," he said. "I do select bookings. Night stuff. Weekends mostly." He said, "night stuff," like it meant something else. Like there was a second layer to what he was really offering. I asked him if he remembered working anything last Friday. He didn't hesitate. Private rental. Closed roster. No public bookings that night. I asked if he remembered a woman named Madeline. Silence. Then he said, "You're not looking for catering." I didn't answer. He let out the kind of breath that people make when they realize the game's up. "You shouldn't be calling me," he said. "I don't talk to husbands. Ever." He hung up. Just like that. I sat there staring at the call-ended screen, my heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. He knew who I was. Or at least, he knew what I was. A husband. The outsider. The one in the dark. And now, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to know the rest. Because whatever my wife was doing with Dominic, it wasn't just cheating. It was organized. It was scheduled. And from the way he said it, I wasn't the first to call. I couldn't stop thinking about what Dominic said. "I don't talk to husbands. Ever." That line kept looping in my head like it meant more than just shame. It sounded like policy. Like something rehearsed. Like my wife wasn't the first person to get involved with whatever this actually was. And I sure as hell wasn't the first husband to go digging. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. She passed out fast, which she always does when she's overwhelmed. I laid there for another hour, staring at the ceiling, feeling that familiar weight sitting on my chest. Not quite anger, not sadness either. Just numb curiosity. Like I'd already lost everything, so I might as well turn over every stone. She always backed her phone up to the cloud. I knew her login from way back, when we got new phones together. She'd never changed it, at least not until recently. When I tried to log in earlier that week, the password didn't work. But something about that warehouse had made me more determined, and this time, I tried her old laptop. She never used it anymore, but it still auto-filled everything. And there it was. Not just the usual backups, photos, messages, emails, but something else. A folder named Receipts. Tucked deep in the Notes app, hidden behind a chain of old grocery lists and half-written poems. Inside that folder were screenshots, PDFs, maps, instructions. The first document was titled NDA's Event Policy. It had a logo at the top I'd never seen before. Not from the winery, not from the catering place. Just a minimalist black square with a single white letter. R. The text looked like legal boilerplate, a non-disclosure agreement between private contractors and event clients. No names, no dates. But buried in the body of the agreement were clauses about anonymity, payment verification, personal discretion, and this one chilling line. No guests are permitted without prior clearance through intake. I wasn't a guest. I was the husband. I never cleared anything. No one ever told me I wasn't supposed to be there. The next item was a map. A private location, listed only by coordinates, not even an address. I pasted them into Google Maps. It pointed to a gated property north of town, deep in the woods, past the kind of roads that don't even have names. The preview image was just trees. I kept going. Screenshot after screenshot. Text threads between her and someone listed as R. I read every one of them twice. Nothing explicit. Nothing emotional. Just logistics. Times. Phrases like confirm profile, usual dress code, payment received. This wasn't cheating. Not in the normal sense. This was something structured. Controlled. And she was part of it. Willingly. Which meant all the nights I thought she was working late, or sleeping early, or taking quiet time, on Sunday mornings. She might have been in those woods. Behind that gate. Doing things I can't unimagine. I don't know what I was expecting to find when I drove out there. Maybe a cabin. Maybe a group of cars and a few tents. Maybe nothing. But what I didn't expect was how easy it was to get close. No cameras. No posted warnings. Just a narrow dirt path that split off from the main road and curved into the trees like it had always been there. I left my truck half a mile back and walked the rest of the way on foot. The woods were dead quiet, not even birds. Every step I took felt louder than it should have. The kind of silence that makes you second guess whether you're actually alone. The path led to a gate. Black. Steel. Closed, but not locked. Just slightly ajar like someone had gone through and never bothered to pull it shut. There were tire tracks in the dirt. Fresh ones. And beyond that gate was something I still can't fully explain. It wasn't a house. It wasn't a barn. It looked like a repurposed storage facility, long and low to the ground, with blacked-out windows and a loading bay that didn't match the rest of the structure. There were no signs, no lights, nothing to suggest what it was used for. But there were voices inside. Muted, calm, measured, like people having a meeting. I stepped closer, staying out of the line of sight, trying to hear. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone. And then I saw it. Parked off to the side, half covered in leaves like it had been stashed there on purpose. It was Madeline's car. I ducked behind a tree as the door opened. Two people stepped out, her and a man I'd never seen before. Not Anton. Not Dominic. This guy was older, maybe mid-50s, dressed like he came from a boardroom, not a party. He handed her a folder, said something I couldn't hear, and got into a black SUV. She didn't drive off. She just stood there, flipping through the folder. Calm. Focused. Like she was reviewing a contract. I stayed frozen, unsure if I should confront her, take photos, or just walk away and disappear. But something in me cracked. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Or the way she looked, serious, but not guilty. I stepped out and said her name. She turned like she'd expected me. No screaming. No panic. Just honesty. We talked for over an hour. Right there, in the woods, beneath a sky full of fading light. And for the first time in months, maybe longer, she told me the truth. She hadn't been cheating, not in the way I thought. The private events, the secrecy, the NDAs, it was all part of a side business she'd started. A consulting group. Quiet, high-paying, and deeply tied to people with reputations to protect. She hadn't told me because she thought I wouldn't understand. She said she was trying to build something of her own before revealing it, and that she regretted how far the lies had gone. The texts with Anton were real, yes, but old. Flirtation, yes, but it never went anywhere. She showed me the rest of the messages, the parts she had deleted out of fear I'd react before she could explain. She admitted she liked the attention, felt powerful for once, and hated herself for it. We didn't fix everything that day. That kind of damage takes time. But she apologized, really apologized, and for once, I believed it wasn't rehearsed. We drove home in silence. Not angry silence, not distant, just quiet. The kind of quiet that meant something was still there. That night, she slept beside me for the first time in weeks, not just physically, but present. And I finally exhaled. We started therapy the next week. We've got a long road ahead, but I'll say this, I'm glad I didn't walk away. Sometimes, the truth is ugly, but it's not always the end.